Okay, in this video I'm going to be explaining everything specific to Zero G Arena that you need to know to make maps for it. I'll assume you know the basics of map creation in UE4, but you might be able to follow along if you don't. Okay, so you should have your Zero G Arena development files downloaded, which is what I've got open here. So I'll just explain briefly what they actually are. They're essentially an ordinary Unreal project, essentially a copy of the Unreal project I use for Zero G Arena with some slight modifications. But for that reason there's a lot of stuff in the content browser that you just won't need to use or worry about. So I'll be explaining over the course of this video which bits you will need to use. Okay, so first I'm going to make a map. I suggest anything that you make you put inside the user created folder here. I don't think it matters right now, but it might do in future. So it doesn't matter what the map's called, so I'll call it my first map. And open that, and it's completely blank by default. So there are a few settings for the map that we need to change in order to make it work with Zero G Arena. The first one obviously is we need to turn gravity off, so that's easy. We just go to world settings, down to override world gravity, and set that to 0. If I've ticked override world gravity, the default value is 0, so that's fine. And I need to set it to a Zero G Arena game mode. Now, anything prefixed with star is a Zero G Arena game mode here. Star is a prefix you'll see quite a lot throughout the content browser. It was a working title for Zero G Arena at one point. So I'm going to set it to star game mode free for all because that's the simplest. Right. So what we're going to do now is try and make something that our character can walk on. So I'm going to go to BSP and just drag a box into the level. I can't see anything because there are no lights, so I'll go into unlit mode. Right, now I'm going to put that box at 0. And I think I'll add a light now. I'm also going to increase the brightness on that light for reasons I'll probably explain in a later video. And let's make this box 10 meters by 10 meters. Right, so if I go and test this now, which I can do by pressing the play button here, our dude spawns, but you can see he's just floating because there's no magnetic field. So the next thing we want to do is define a magnetic field. So you can find them in the content browser under blueprints, mag fields, and the basic mag field class is magfield_BP. Right, so the arrow indicates the direction of the magnetic field as you'd expect. By default it doesn't have any area, so we can define its area using any number of collision components. We can go to add components under details and add anything under collision here, and we can add as many of those as we want to make all kinds of shapes. So I'm going to make a box collision. Now I'll set the extent to 500 by 500 and then 500 tall. Now I want this mag field just to overlap the floor slightly. It doesn't matter how much it overlaps, but it's got to overlap at least a little bit, because something very strange happens if it's hovering slightly above the floor. So now if I move the camera inside that and press play, the fella falls to the ground when his magnet boots are on, and he floats when they're off. Okay, so something I'm sure you're going to want to do is have walkable surfaces at different angles. So luckily that's very simple. I'm just going to duplicate this floor on the mag field by control selecting both of them and then holding Alt and dragging them off like that. I'm going to go into unlit mode because I've dragged them outside the light. Then I can just rotate them both and that's it. If I go and play here now and press F2 to enter unlit mode, so I can see the direction of the mag field is in the direction of the arrow. Right, so one more thing about mag fields. If you've got overlapping mag fields like we have here, now the obvious solution here would just be to drag this one so they don't overlap, but for demonstrative purposes we'll leave that there. If there's a property called mag field priority, which you can find under details for each mag field, and if two overlapping mag fields have the same priority, they'll both affect the character, which can be a bit confusing. So here, what I'm going to want to happen is when we're in this mag field here, to not be affected by this one. So I'm just going to either make this one a higher priority or the other one a lower priority. The priority can go below 0. So I've made this mag field priority 1 and that one's still 0. So that means if I go and play now and I jump here, he's not affected by the other mag field, which is what we want. Okay, so now we've got some walkable surfaces. The next thing I'm going to show you is where to find some meshes, so like visual objects that you can place in the level. So if you go to content and then meshes, there's an awful lot here, the vast majority of which you probably won't want to use. Some of them that you will, particularly under mag floor, and then for whatever reason I decided a long time ago to call the basic square mag floors mag floor recycled. So we drag one of those into the level, and just place that on top of the BSP there. So that doesn't serve any particular gameplay purpose, just any solid object that's within a mag field can be walked on. What it does do though is illustrate where the mag fields are to the player, so I try to put them under every mag field. Right, so here you've got all different sizes of square mag floor from which you can create, you know, different shapes like an oblong with 2 of these. There are various other shapes of mag floor hidden throughout the content browser. Unfortunately they're not always in logical places, so you can always just go to the root directory and then search here mag floor. Something you're going to want to ignore is anything called mag floor whatever underscore BP. They've also got the dark blue bar at the bottom because they're blueprints. This is from back when there was a kind of class of mag floor that did gameplay logic, but you're going to want to ignore them completely now. So here we can find, you know, here's a mag floor sphere. That's an actual mesh. Static meshes have a turquoise bar at the bottom, and then I think there's a couple of round ones. Not a terribly good range, to be honest, overall. I'm hoping that'll be improved in future. Alright, some more meshes that you might want to actually use are the cover ones, which you can find under meshes cover. So there's low cover, which you could duck behind, high cover, which is tools in the characters, floating cover, which are those things from the chamber map, roof cover, which you can use to take cover from someone on a platform above you. The low cover and high cover, you can make cover pieces of any length using the end cover meshes here, and some number of the middle cover meshes. So you can see I can duplicate that as many times as I want. So let's make a piece of cover that's 5 meters long. So now I just drag that end out, duplicate it, and rotate it 180 degrees. So now I've got a piece of cover 5 meters long. Okay, so some other potentially useful meshes I suppose could be the pillar meshes, which I think I use in a couple of places. So they're on the pillar, and it's a similar, oh where the hell's it gone, there it is, and it's a similar situation as with the cover meshes. So I've got a middle section there, and there's the base. I just line them up and either duplicate that, or I could actually scale it. If you see what I mean there. Alright, the last thing I can think of that you need to know about in automate levels are player starts, which define the spawn locations. So there is a default player start class in the engine, but we need to use a special one for Zero G Arena called star player start. So if I drag one of them into the level there, you've got to make sure it doesn't overlap any objects. One extra property it has is the team property here. So if you're making a map for team game modes, you've got to make sure there are enough for each team. It's a good idea to have as many player starts as players you want your map to support, so typically at least about 8 or so. Otherwise you'll have people spawning in the same place. Actually, one more thing you might want to know about are the weapon and health pickups. You can find them under blueprints, pickups, and then you've got all the weapon and pickups here, and here's health pickup. A couple of things to bear in mind. One is that what's referred to in the manual as an SMG is called the starter gun here, because it used to be the default gun, of course. Oh, and also it's not a good idea to place the homer gun pickup and the rocket launch pickup in the same level, because they occupy the same slot in the inventory. For that matter, you probably won't want to use the homer gun pickup at all. I don't think the weapon's a big success, so the rocket launcher was intended to replace it. Okay, so assuming you do know at least the basics of map creation in UE4, I think that's all of the essentials you need to know about Zero G Arena to make maps for it. Although I am planning to make some more videos where I go into more depth, and also some videos on what I think are best practices and some theories on what makes a good map and that kind of thing. One other thing you can do is look at some examples of maps I've already made under content maps. I think I've left them all in there that are in the game, but just be aware the mag floors that you'll see in these levels are the old mag floor blueprint class rather than the static meshes. You'll just want to use a standard static mesh.